Hello, everyone. Nate Smith here today with Neil Prowse. The season has just kicked off at the Babine Knack Project. So, looking to get an update here from Neil, discuss a little bit about what's happening out the gate, and touch on how some of the season's going to progress. So, hey, Neil, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. It's been a while since we've had a proper chat.
Yeah. Not much time in the down season, it seems like. We're starting a little bit earlier this year, hey?
Yeah, we're getting started nice and early. So, and that's good. There's a lot of prep work to do because we're going to be doing quite a bit of aggressive step outs, and that requires some trail expansion and some timber clearing. So we're working with some local contractors right now to make sure that we have all the access we need for a pretty ambitious plans this season.
Okay, yeah, great. That was actually one of my questions here to kick it off. So, you guys got up there a little bit earlier. The ground's still somewhat frozen. You're doing some of the deforestation work and the road building, or is it just road rehabilitation right now? Or what's it look
Road,
like here so far?
yeah, road rehabilitation. I hesitate to say deforestation because we're really just being very selective with what we take down. Um, and the ground is very much not frozen. It is very thawed and very wet in a lot of places right now, as is pretty standard this time of year. But the cut block and quite a number of areas off of the historical trails we were able to clear out in previous seasons uh, are pretty well consolidated right now. So we're able to get some of our early targeting done. Um, right in some areas where we know we want to expand on our known mineralization. So it's worked out really well to get a bit of a soft start with two rigs going, um, and then in a week we'll have our third rig in. So yeah, we're just kind of in a bit of a push to get some sites cleared and going, but we should have a pretty healthy buffer of pad sites cleared in the next 2 weeks here.
Okay, and so sorry, you've got two rigs already going off the hop here.
That's right. Yeah.
Right on. And the plan is to bring in the third as a skid rig, or is it just going to be two for this foreseeable?
No, it'll be three rigs from I think we're getting that crew in. The rig's moving in early next week, and we're getting the crew in by Friday. So they'll be drill spinning next Friday.
Okay, turn off with the bang. So talk about yourself. So you're back on site. You're dedicated, or what's it look like this year with regards to the
I'm back.
Mantac day to day?
I'm back in it. So yeah, I'll be on site
Back.
2 weeks on, 2 weeks off for pretty much the entire season. Um,
Okay.
and that season's looking like it's going to go pretty long. We're going to go till December 15th. We'll take a month off over the Christmas break, let some data come in, do a little bit of interpretation, and get some things going for the winter. And we'll be drilling from about January 15th to probably the end of March when it starts to thaw out.
Okay. And then is it a familiar cast of characters? Who's up all on site? Is
Yeah, we
Dave
got
or
a big. I
Nick?
mean, we've got pretty much our entire Lake Babine Nation contingent back for our core cutting and our geotech staff, and some of our drill fifth man, which is great. Uh, and then we've got myself and Dave, James, and Liam and Don, and we have a pretty sizable cast of returning geologists, which is nice too, who are all pretty integral in a lot of that data collection and interpretation over the last off season and drill program.
Well, that's great. Yeah, some familiar hands on the site. Do you guys have like expanded level of facilities now? I'm assuming another core tent possibly, or what do you guys got? It's new and improved on site.
Yeah, so you saw the core shack last year on the site visit. Or was that 2024? You've seen our core facilities. We brought in an identical second shack. There's a pretty high likelihood that we'll expand to a fourth rig later in the fall. So I want to make sure that we've got the facilities there to log everything efficiently. And we've got a second cut shack as well in
Okay.
anticipation of any expansion. And whether or not we expand this season, I mean, it is going to expand towards 2027. So yeah, it's better to have that done early than be scrambling.
Okay, great. Well, I've got on my screen here just the touch up I did on the plan map that you guys have shared previously. But any chance you've got the 3D model with the updated drill traces that you guys have for the first phase, or should we just go off the plan?
Let's go off the plan map. I do have a 3D model up, but we're tweaking that as we go. Uh, And so I don't actually have those drill traces loaded in my 3D. So let's go off the plan map, and then I can kind of add some traces and annotate with my shared screen on the 3D model if we want to go that route. But why don't you bring up what we have, and we can kind of discuss how it all ties together with the plan.
Okay. Yeah, so I just took the original that was in the news release, or it might have been with the interview video you did last. Just and I nodded where some of the drill traces from last year there have remarked. Yeah, so maybe jump into like where are you guys starting? Like where are the first two rigs at? Are they immediately following up on hole 70 out the gate or somewhere in the southwest zone? What are you guys focusing on?
So what we're doing right out the gate, so 70 and that string of holes kind of in the center of the stock, kind of joining those two little C lobes together. Uh, that is up our main access. It's a historical access trail that we were able to widen out a little bit last year, but it is still pretty much saturated with the winter runoff. So that's being widened out actually as we speak. We've got a local logging contractor on site just taking a single row of trees out, and that's going to allow us to ditch the road so that it dries out much faster than it normally would, and we can get trucks up there. So in the meantime, we've highlighted a couple holes that we want to expand out of our main zone within the cut block. So we've done a hole that's stepped to the northeast, about 100 meters to the northeast of the historical south zone, kind of right around where you're hovering, and drilling back under it as a bit of a fence of hole 80, what we did last year. So, its planned path is to traverse through the stock at the top, through the historical south zone, to the northeast of where we have drill intercepts, and then drill down, punch out of the stock into what we're reasonably certain is pretty well mineralized conglomerate at depth. And so kind of tie, again, like hole 80 did, tie the mineralization from the south near surface zone to the mineralization we're seeing at depth, but on about a 100-meter step out to expand that and see how it's trending. Second hole we're drilling is off to the west. So that IP chargeability halo, we've collared actually right around where your cursor is, off of one of the historical locations, and we've turned the rig. We know for intersecting veining, drilling shallowly to the west is an optimal orientation now, and we have no information out there. So we're going to do a few holes that are stepping sequentially up along the main zone. And the idea is if there's any mineralization out there at all, it's going to help us constrain our pit dimensions when we eventually get to that planning stage. So we're going to need some holes out there. The access is pretty tricky as we go further to the west because it drops into a pretty steep, very treed valley. But we've got lots of pad sites prepped that allow us to test that pretty effectively drilling to the west. And that's actually the best orientation to drill in the zone at NAC. So yeah, I'm very curious to see what comes out of that one too.
Okay. And then, yeah, next steps for the drill rig, or drill rigs, I should say, is the idea that you're going to look to do steps directly north of that to walk out and try to define pit extents to do
Yeah,
more?
so yeah, we probably won't drill as tight a spacing as we have in there through the zone. With that tight spacing, we're able to constrain a nice zone of mineralization marginal to the porphyry stock. But we don't have any information what's directly below those holes, and that's actually a pretty large volume of rock, and there's a reasonably good chargeability signature there. We know we get into some pyrite, but as we've drilled out into that area in the south, it's actually not too bad. There's quite a bit of chalcopyrite in that as well, and quite a bit of molybdenite. So we're going to step those north. Probably in about 400 meter centers instead of the 200 meter centers that we have there.
Okay.
And then we're also going to continue to test to the south. We've had some pretty good, or further south holes, we're still actually fairly decent holes on a bulk composite average. And so we haven't really defined the extent to the south. So while we're waiting for our access for the main step out around the stock to dry up and get those pad sites prepped, the focus will be on expanding the zone that we know we have with reasonable certainty around the south zone, main zone, and north zone there.
Okay. And let's go back to the first hole you're describing that's drilling right now as a northeasterly step out to 80. Is the philosophy of the drill plan to just continue stepping northeast and to start filling in this, or are you guys going to rotate up and start working your way to the south? How are you thinking about approaching that right now?
It's going to depend on what the site conditions are like. So both those first callers, kind of that are drilling a little bit to the east and into the main zone there, those are both easily able to be prepped. So we'll be moving to one of those locations. We're going to be tweaking the azimuth because we're pretty, what we're seeing in this first hole is pretty encouraging. So we want to continue to follow that up. And that's a pretty big gap in between those string of drill holes. Between 70 and 75 there, and beyond. So we're going to be getting in there as well and doing some drilling.
Yeah, you could foresee potentially, depending on results, maybe possibly walking a line even between this as well. Is that what you're referring to possibly until that?
Yeah, and there is a historical trail in there as well. Just needs to be cleared out. So yeah, that should be good. And it's actually on pretty nice gravelly, well drained ground. So yeah, that shouldn't be an issue at all.
Right. How's the productivity for the work there that's into the Babine stock? Is that slowing down compared to like the drills that are collared out onto the west side and the more conglomerate top, or is that a concern?
It's pretty similar. The production when we're in the stock proper is actually really good. It's nice. It's harder rock, but it's really nice and consolidated. And sometimes that's the biggest slowdown. It's when it gets blocky and you slip the core and you've got to re-drill stuff. We don't really have those issues in the stock. It's really nice drilling ground. You do run into that a little bit. We've got some narrow zones of late overprinting, looks like argillic alteration, like kaolinite, sericite, as salvages, on meter scale salvages to late stage veins. And so that can make the rock a little bit softer, but it often brings in mineralization. So yeah, it's, we'll see. We just don't have a ton of information in there at all.
Okay. And then let's talk about some of the other holes here detailed in phase one. So it sounds like for the southwest zone, extending it, that's awesome. That's happening. It's underway. What about extensions toward the southeast? Right now, I'm only seeing the whole slightly southeast collared of 75 there. Is the intent to see where and what that extends to and then revisit for phase two expansion, or what are your thoughts on?
Yeah, and it's pretty heavily forested, and that's a ways outside of the historical exploration trail. So we'll need to be doing a little bit of trail construction, and it depends on what the ground conditions are like there. So I was hesitant to show any phase one holes out in that area, even though we definitely do have designs on drilling those, just because it might make sense to wait until the ground's frozen up. So that might be a little bit of a winter plan out on the south end there.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, let's move more to some of the northerly holes here planned to date. And then let's talk about predominantly here on the northwest side and some of the drill planning and the target reasoning behind some of them. Is this just a drill around the clock situation, just to see if we can drill out the entirety of the Babine stock? Or what's driving some of the initial targeting that we're seeing here?
Well, so if you see where hole 70 drilled, where hole 53 drilled, and where hole 81 drilled, these steeper holes approaching the north, they were almost entirely within Babine stock rocks, and their grade was really quite good for our understanding of the stock. So those holes in the north of the stock last year really kind of changed our thinking on how this deposit might be shaping up, right? Before we knew our best mineralization was marginal to the stock and within some later stage dikes that do cut the stock that bring in some really good mineralization. We're seeing mineralization within the stock, and that is a combination of much more densely spaced stringer veins and fracture hosted mineralization, local zones of disseminations, which we don't typically see in the stock, and then just a higher frequency of these dikes bringing in mineralizing fluids. So we get zones of really nice coarse aggregates of chalcopyrite, molybdenite, sometimes bornite flanking some of these veins. or some of these dikes, and yeah, that all kind of comes together to contribute to the higher grade profile we're seeing in the north of the stock here. And we have some indication. Our furthest south hole in the stock, uh, stepping out from that 53 zone, was hole 63, and that actually bulked out to be an okay hole as well. So there's a lot of ground in there that needs to be tested, and it extends all the way out to the east. So even hole 61, our furthest hole to the far east, still encountering zones of, if it was able to be linked to the rest of the stock and the mineralization we see, that sort of blue outline footprint there, yeah, it really dramatically increases the scale of our mineralization. So that's kind of why this north zone is designed the way it is. There's a lot of volume of rock to test. We want to be efficient, so we want to be able to access it from trail and skid rigs. And depending on what we hit, then we can work on our planning if we need to bring in some helicopter rigs to do some more precise targeting within it, and then infill some of those sparser drill strings. So yeah, it's quite a bit going on. There's quite a bit to still figure out, but I think we've, with this plan and this coverage, we're going to be able to start to piece things together as we drill this season.
Okay. Yeah, and in phase one as well, we detailed here we'll call it from the 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock drilling on the northeast side to the east side. Yeah, walk us through the targeting that's going on for that. Is that just, again, the IP resistivity signature interface that's driving some of that targeting, or
yeah? So the IP is the big, compelling, bright glowing target out there, right? We know there's a lot of sulfide. We know towards the south of that we find chalcopyrite in outcrop. It's sparse. There's not a lot of outcrop, but there is copper mineralization at surface way out there within that chargeability zone. And we haven't really drilled outside of the stock there. So hole 61 we drilled, that's a far east hole, that was entirely within intrusive rocks. And we know the best host seems to still be those marginal stratified rocks that are host to the porphyry stock. There's a historical hole 9535, which is in between those, that we brought back and looked at, and it's pretty encouraging. There's bornite mineralization in it. There's quite a bit of chalcopyrite, and it's in and out of the same style of diking that we like to see in the main zone, and these darker biotite altered sedimentary rocks. So stepping out in this area is going to be pretty key to determining the extent of the stock, where we're most likely to see some mineralization, and then testing that chargeability anomaly properly to depth. There's been very sparse historical drilling out there, and there's sniffs of mineralization in all of those holes. So we've seen time and time again some of the historical drilling stop just short of the best mineralization in that. So we've got some decent depths of these hole plan. These are all around 650 meters target depths, and if we're still in mineralization, we'll keep it going. And then once that trail is blazed up there, then we can continue to push and do some exploration to the east, to the west, and hopefully further to the south.
Okay. Yeah, and noticing on phase one here, just this string of planned holes, you're looking at possibly 2 off of this as a fan, or are you looking at like dropping a dead center like vertical hole as well?
We're going to try to avoid doing vertical holes, just with the knowledge of how steep our dikes and our veins are. It's a good way to test volume, and it's a good way to test if the legs of the system, to see if there's some different mineralization style down deep. But I think we did enough of those back in 2022 that we know we have the most success when we drill these inclined holes. It'll go through the way we've oriented those are kind of splitting the difference between going through the diking orientation and going through the veining orientation and going through the stratified rock orientation. There's no one perfect orientation for everything, because there's the dikes and the veining are dominantly north south trending and very steeply dipping, and the stratigraphy is northwest, southeast trending, and southeast dipping. Sorry, northeast dipping. So you're kind of compromising one or the other. So drilling a southeast orientation is actually really, really good for going through stratified rocks. Not necessarily the greatest for going through the veining. And you can see here we're avoiding doing anything kind of due north and due south.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and I think it'll show up better here. If you want to bring up the 3D model, while you're bringing that up, because there's the elevation gain relative to the west side to the east side. So what's the planned depth? You mentioned 600, and if it's in minute, it'll keep going. But is that going to be sufficient enough to test some of the target locations that you guys are after when you start to work your way to that north, northeast, and east side with regards to that overall elevation gain? I'll get you to, it really jumps out at you when you look at the 3D model. I haven't got that up myself.
Yeah, I'll bring the
mine.
I'll bring the 3D model up, unless you've got something up and ready to go. I just want to get this. Yet. Okay, I will. Just give me a moment here. I'll change my topography color to gray so you can actually see the contours of the terrain a little bit better. Okay, let's go here. Okay, can you see the screen here?
Yeah, that's coming up now.
Yeah, so this is the this green voxel is our very crudely interpolated mineralization footprint model. This is in no way approaching a resource levels of any sort of confidence, but this is giving us a guide of where to test. You can see as we get to the east, looking at the terrain, that the elevation does increase. So the top of the ridge is at about 1,200 meters, and our cut block, our main zone area, is hovering around 1040. So there's almost 200 meters of elevation gain. We'll see how that affects the mineralization. I mean, when we drill our south zone, it certainly looks like the rocks right off the top are indicative of alteration and mineralization that you would see kind of in the core of a porphyry system. So there's some evidence that, I mean, there's obviously been some erosion, and we're seeing surface at a level that's, where you're seeing your sort of porphyry core mineralization. I mean, we do know that there's some telescoping going on, and we get back into more like that core goes a long way down. But that might actually play into our favor as we step up at higher elevation, provided that the system's extent is this far out. It is a long way to go. But you can, again, in the 3D here, I don't have the planned holes in here, but you can see just how sparse the testing is and how shallow some of the historical drilling is. So there's a lot of merit to testing out here, and pushing those holes beyond the kind of 150 to 200 meter depth that the historical drilling was done out here. Some of these are even shorter, like these are around 100 meters. I think I think it could work out very well, and at worst, we don't hit a ton of mineralization, but we increase the spacing, and we can constrain our knowledge of the stock boundaries, and then that helps us refine our targeting for phase 2. So it's going to be a lot of information gathering this year, with the idea that we're going to be expanding the mineralization.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, my mind goes to, I mean, the drilling there. Like, what is for the sparse drilling that we have in that area, what is the average depth that mineralization picking up? Is that in around the 100 meter mark, or what are you looking at right now?
I mean, hole 35, the mineralization was anything green is above 0.1 copper equivalent. So there's mineralization right off the top when you're outside of the stock. Uh, and even in our holes that were, less than stellar last year, there's still quite a bit of mineralization in these. Like, we're still in the system. The NAC system is pretty punctuated, so it's just a matter of drilling enough to be able to tie it all together. Hole 61, which was in intrusive rocks pretty much the entire way down, also hit some zones of pretty decent mineralization, and there was gold kicks in there as well, which is really good to see. And we actually bottomed in probably the most consistent part of the hole, and yeah, maybe we ended it a little bit too early, but we're going back there to test a bit more completely. So yeah,
Okay,
there's
that's
yeah, it's a lot of it's host rock dependent, where the dikes are. Yeah, and then these holes are just really, really short. Like, not enough information to go on for us to be confident to rule that area out. So yeah, we're gonna be testing ourselves this year.
Yeah, my mind goes to more future looking too, development wise. Like the intent right now this year is to start the framework for setting up the resource estimate, but any of this drilling that's off of this side, I think it's important to reflect on if it is mineralized, how that's going to impact a potential pushback and whether or not that meets cutoff is an important one. So if it's above cutoff, I mean, pushbacks become uh, more mineralization to stockpile or process, right? So it's good to see that you guys are going to be drilling that off as well, just to confirm, because otherwise, I mean, in a resource model for a PA or PFS or FS level development, that would all be just considered waste rock, right? So to do uh, initial drilling in that area as well will help open up and contribute to those economic evaluations down the road.
Exactly. I mean, we don't want to jump the gun and push out a resource too early without defining the proper extents of the system. So yeah, if there is, depending on what cutoff ends up being here, knowledge of wherever we have mineralization is going to be really, really important. So yeah, we're going to be focusing on really sort of pushing the boundaries of the drilling here in terms of kind of as far out as we can reasonably go within the broader geophysical anomaly.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, well, we got the 3D model, and you're at the helm. Can you just drop again the rough point of where the first rig is going, the second one's going, and then the incoming third one? Where do you guys plan on sighting that off to go?
Haven't quite decided yet. We got a few options. So there's a few things that we do want to follow up. Hole 78 was stellar last year, and it looks like that zone is open and trending out to the northwest potentially. So we're going to follow that up. Uh, Hole 80 was really good. That's this hole here that I'm kind of tracing out, and it started just on the southeastern edge of our near surface south zone. I'm just going to turn the block model off here so you can kind of see where the grade is distributed. So this near surface south zone, gold rich mineralization is constrained to this corner here. And so we're successively testing to the northeast. Already very encouraged by what we're seeing off the top here. And a lot of this is open. Some of these historical holes here, I don't know how trustworthy a lot of that data is. I really want to get our own drilled data in here. These historical holes off the same collar hit some very, very good mineralization. And then off the same collar spun were pretty dead. And it's not likely they were drilling down a dike feature there, because we didn't hit them in any of the other holes, and the other holes we've drilled in that area have actually been really quite good. So there's a lot of really good reasons to continue pushing this south zone to the northeast. This is going to define the bounds of it. We don't have holes penciled in here planned yet, but they will be. We've got a lot of flexibility with where we put those collars, because it is in a cut block. Yeah, that's going to kind of drive the economics of this whole thing. It's right at surface. It's very gold rich. It's got lots of copper. So yeah, that's definitely an area of focus. and then we'll start working our way to the east and then to the north.
Okay. And then as far as the mineralization arrangement, right? The south zone, the original pocket there that was very attractive, that was largely hosted in the, what was it, more of a stockwork arrangement. And then as you guys have drilled now 78 and 80, I mean, are we seeing the stockwork style mineralization hosting the mineralization there on these initial holes that you're starting to step out away from that area? Is that now coming back into the picture, or have we seen continuity of that?
The mineralization style is different. I mean, the stockwork mineralization is very it's it's not a super strongly developed stockwork. There are local zones of fairly chaotically oriented veins. A lot of the mineralization is along the margins of these veins and then just fractures. There's just bornite dusted along fractures. That seems to be correlated with gold in the south zone. As we get deeper, the gold at least seems to be related to later stage anhydrite plus or minus molybdenite bearing veins, and doesn't seem as closely tied to the bornite. So I think it's a little bit of a different timing. It's concentrated around the same area, which makes me think there's structural pathways that are being exploited and reactivated. But the timing, I think, might be a little bit different just based on the different styles of mineralization. We do see some of these later stage, more felsic dikes come in and bring some very good mineralization. But down very, very deep, there's some very, very good, like really, really, really nice bornite mineralization. Concentrated in and around the earliest phase of mafic diking. And so whether that's coming in later or that mafic diking itself was, possibly the earliest phase of the mineralizing system, need a bit more information to tell. We have some similar geochemical signatures actually up in that 59 zone, up to the far north here. So it'll be really interesting to get some more holes in there and see if we do start to see some of these high grade pockets, what that looks like. But yeah, going back to the question of just where we're gonna test to kind of link these south zone, deeper south zone, and expand. Right now, it's going to be trying to step outside the bounds of this mineralization model. So working out, we're trying to add volume here. So that's it's going to be the mission going forward.
That's great. Well, that about wraps up some of the initial questions at the gate there. I wish you guys the best of luck here at the early part of the season and safe operations for the American Eagle team. Before we go, do you have any else items there you want to touch on there, Neil, or items you want to reflect on?
Yeah, not immediately. It's it's just trying to coordinate everything and get everything up and going. The team has been great. Dave, my counterpart on the logistics side, has been instrumental in getting this season up and going. He was up 2 weeks before I showed up, just getting the drill sites prepped, going out with the loggers, getting our new core check floor all prepped. And then James, who's our other co-manager this year, he's holding down the fort in the core check right now and training up a bunch of new geologists. So yeah, it's a pretty big team effort here. And then a lot of support back at the CJ Gregg office in Penticton. We got Nick Dudek doing his thing and bringing in data that we would have loved to have a bit more time to look at in this off season, but we had a much shorter off season this year. So there's going to be a lot of back and forth with just new insights as we continue to drill and integrating that with what we're hitting, and possibly refining the plan on the fly. So yeah, it's an exciting project to be a part of, and really happy to be back out again this season.
Right on, Neil. All right. Well, with that, I'll sign off and say till we catch up next time.
Yeah. Thanks, Nate.